Hi, my name is Kimberly Harper. I'm an EL teacher in Alabama, and I am so excited to talk to you today about Amy Wu and the Perfect Bao. Amy Wu and the Perfect Bao tells such a sweet story of Amy being on a quest to build what she considers to be the perfect bao. Of course, she comes across some opposition as she realizes it's harder than she thinks, but with some help from her family, she finds it along the way. The first time I shared this book with my students, I especially was excited because I know the power that a book can have, especially in terms of being windows and mirrors to our students. For me, this book is absolutely a mirror, and I was so excited to see an Asian character, and I absolutely saw myself in this book. And as an EL teacher, I have many students of all different cultures, but I know it was especially special for my students to see them self-represented. There are so many different things that you can do with this story. I love books like this that you can pull out so many different teaching elements as you're reading aloud with your students. I think it'd be so fun for us to build a bao together, whether that be a directed drawing, which is wonderful for listening skills as students are following procedural directions, but then also just forming connections in their writing. Maybe their family or their culture has something really special to them. You can tell all throughout the book that baos are very special to Amy's family and her culture. And I think that all students could make a connection and bring something to the table of something that they like to make with their family. So I'd love to encourage my students to share what's important to them and their family. Anytime that you have a recipe in a book, I feel like it lends itself so easily to help students sequence. A lot of times kids are very familiar with how to do, how-to writing. And so you could easily show them each page and go through together, maybe with a graphic organizer, and say, well, first we need to make the dough. And then lead your students through writing the steps of how to make a perfect bao. Of course, one thing I noticed as well was the great use of antonyms in the story. When Amy's on her quest to find the perfect bao, she really struggles at first because at first it was too big and then it was too small. And it's such an easy, teachable moment that you can show your students the power of antonyms and opposites and an easy way to help them use inferencing skills if they're not sure what a word means. There's also some amazing Tier 2 vocabulary all throughout this story. A lot of unfamiliar words, especially for my students who are English learners. And so words like need, bow, of course, is probably unfamiliar to most students. Filling, steamer, there's such rich vocabulary all throughout. Would be such an easy way to include some Tier 2 vocabulary for your students. Another great lesson idea that would be so simple to include would be problem and solution. Of course, Amy's problem is that she's struggling so hard to find a way to make the perfect bao. And I don't want to give any spoilers, but of course, for every problem, there has to be a solution. Another great lesson that you could include is we're always looking for ways to encourage our students and include some SEL components. Amy really is a great testament to the power of perseverance and never giving up. I think that Amy Wu and the Perfect Bao is a read aloud for any time of the year. However, I would love to bring it out when I've noticed that my students are maybe struggling in particular with maybe those less than perfect feelings. Amy ends up realizing that even when she eats the not so perfect bao, that guess what? It still tastes just as good. And so sometimes when your students might need a little extra encouragement, this would be the perfect read aloud to bust out and just remind them that sometimes perfect doesn't really exist and the not so perfect tastes just as good. I hope you enjoyed following along with Amy Wu and the Perfect Bao. This book would be an amazing addition to any classroom library.